People, welcome to Newspaper Breakdown, 28th of the 11th. I hope everyone had a weekend. News stories to get through. We'll start with the Royal Mail. Since the Royal Mail was privatised, they have given about £1.9 billion to shareholders. But, of course, this does mean that the boss, Simon Thompson, is still refusing to give a decent pay rise to staff, with a union claiming that the Royal Mail is planning to cut up to 25,000 jobs and reduce letter deliveries to 3 days a week. It was privatised in 2013, of course, thanks to the Tories and the Lib Dems, which was great work. I think it was Vince Cable who was the secretary doing that. At a big loss to us, it must remember, as with all of our privatisations, we make a big loss on them because they tend to be sold to the private sector on the cheap. As it has done with, if you look at the banks, when we gave money to save the banks, which, whether or not you think that was the right thing to do, we ended up losing money on that, or you could argue we could have made more, as we sold it, like the likes of Lloyd's and whatnot, we sold for much cheaper than we could have gotten. And this isn't like Gordon Brown's gold thing, which everyone likes to bring up, where the fact is that gold prices wasn't at like $2,000 for since 1950 all the way to 1997, and then dropped down to 200, and then Gordon Brown went, "Oh, I'll fucking sell everything," and then it came straight back up. That wasn't how it went. Royal Mail not paying, not willing to offer should we say, an inflation busting pay rise. Of course, Simon Thompson himself earned £753,000 last year. Always difficult to find the money. 115,000 staff are to strike on Friday. The Communications Workers Union announced 8 days of stoppages, including on Christmas Eve. The Royal Mail offered its best and final offer of a 9% rise spread over 18 months, which is, I don't know why people do this. And they're going, "Oh, well, this is what we're going to offer. By the way, it's going to come over 18 months." Of course, the CWU denies it's a 9% pay rise and says it's a 7% with strings attached. Royal Mail claims strikes have cost £100 million, with the CWU pointing to the £758 million profit made by the Royal Mail year end of March. Since privatisation in 2013, once again thanks to the Tories and the Lib Dems, that was I voted for the Lib Dems in 2010. First time I voted, and what a fucking mistake that was. Jesus Christ. Piss hands couldn't even work together with fucking Labour to get through an AV vote. At least that would have been something. But since privatisation, costs have gone up for us, as they always do, because they want to make money for themselves. That's all it is. That's all they fucking care about. Since privatisation, first class stamps have gone from 60p to 95p, which is a 58% increase. Second class stamps have gone from 50p to 68p. Next story, we've got Matt Hancock got to the final of I'm a Celeb, and everyone really has made it seem like that means something. I can't believe this is the end of civilization. Oh, it's disgusting. The fact that you've got I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, that's the fucking issue. Because when you've got that, you create celebrity. And you put all the burden onto fucking celebrity, and so politicians over time have become, and you can argue that Tony Blair was the first to do this. Tony Blair was the celebrity fucking prime minister, and we've all just pissed ourselves over all of it because we don't want just a grown up. We want someone who's kooky, who's fun. Oh my God, look at Boris Johnson! Isn't he such a cool dude? And then you've created a society where celebrity is somehow useful, where the reality is you could kill every celebrity and it wouldn't fucking matter. It wouldn't matter. There would be no actual loss to anything. To culture, you wouldn't lose a fucking thing. And when I say celebrity, I mean exactly what I say, celebrity. That's not musicians, because musicians are musicians. Actors are actors. They are something else. Just fucking celebrities are just fucking celebrities. That's it. You've also so fucking wind it all in with the Matt Hancock stuff. He has killed hundreds of thousands of people. He should never have been on TV in the fucking first place. He should be in a fucking inquiry, seeing how VIP lanes occurred, how we lost so much money, and how so many people fucking died. But that inquiry is being held back at the moment because the government are not handing over the documents that they need to fucking hand over. So they're stopping the inquiry, and you're going on about fucking Matt Hancock, but none of you are mentioning the fact that the government is stopping the fucking inquiry to find out who's dying. And that's what you'd be looking at. Sod him fucking eating dicks. Camel dicks in the Mutt's nuts or whatever the fuck it is in Australia. Find out. One, you need to find out why he can be paid £400,000 whilst being an MP to fuck off to Australia. Two, find out why Boris Johnson cannot do his job. If you want a fundamental change, that's how you do it. And it should have started when the Dean Dorrans did it fucking years ago. But oh God, this was awful. And that lasted like fucking 2 seconds, and then she got back and got into fucking cabinet for fuck's sake. People voted for her. People still voted for her. You want to talk about just society's already fucked. Talking about fucking Tory MPs, 5th of December is the deadline given to Tory MPs to declare whether or not they plan to stand down at the next election. MPs are predicting as many as 50 MPs may decide not to stand in 2024, with 10 MPs or 10 Tory MPs already have said they won't. They're expecting, of course, to lose their seats. Some even are considering to leave early, because if, as expected, there is a Labour government and Labour manage to get a majority, it will be a big wipeout for Tories, and then it will be back in the like the 1997 aspect, where no one particularly wants to touch such a fucking loser. Like having a Tory MP, having an MP on your board isn't as impressive as it once was. Add that into having an MP that was part of an absolute bloodbath, it would be even harder. So if someone wants to leave early to actually have a chance of getting a better job. Some also feared that if they did stay and did become MPs, Starmer would come in and stop second jobs, which would fuck their income. Seemingly being an MP is like work experience, you know. It's akin to doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award, hoping that doing that is going to give you a better job later on down the line. What else have we got? Many asylum-seeking children. It's always a good way to start a sentence. You know it's going to be a fun story, don't you? You know, asylum-seeking children. You know that this sentence isn't going to end with "are doing well now" after the kindness shown by humanity. Nope. Many asylum-seeking children are being wrongly sent to Manston in Kent, as the Home Office is routinely changing their date of birth. They're changing the date of birth of unaccompanied children to classify them as adults, which is fucking sickening. Absolutely disgusting. Vile as the day is long. The Refugee Council revealed that even in the case of some boys having IDs, doesn't stop their Home Office from changing their date of birth to make them over 18. Placing children, of course, in dangerous situations, unsafe situations. These children have been attacked. You've seen a migrant dying of fucking diphtheria, for fuck's sake. And that's where we're putting these children. And a child from Syria who was interviewed said Manston was the worst place he had ever been to. From Syria. From fucking Syria. Made a dangerous journey just to get into the worst. Well done us. Absolutely fucking well done us. Exquisite work. We are doing our best to be bastards. Exceptional work. Huge stockpiles of PPE are costing the government £1 million a day to store. Includes thousands of shipping containers besides the UK's largest commercial port. The Department of Health has paid contractor Uniserv £124 million for storage costs over the last few months. This is, there's a lot of fucking stories mixed into this. The fact that billions was wasted on PPE over the pandemic, including billions on PPE that we purchased that couldn't be used. You had made-up companies that have only been around for two shakes of a dick that got £100 million contracts from the government through VPI lanes, all of them seemingly going through ministers who always are using their private emails. It's amazing. I don't know how they all got my private email. Whereas you actually look and you go onto all of these MPs' websites, and if you didn't know them and you wanted to contact them, you would contact them via that, wouldn't you? You wouldn't find their personal email and do that. But as I say, that inquiry isn't going through at the moment because our government is stopping it. Because the idea of democracy or responsibility or anyone being held to account is a myth. It's a myth like justice and happiness and kindness. And finding chalk near a pool table. Over in China, this is the final story. BBC journalist was assaulted and arrested for reporting on anti-lockdown protests. The Chinese police said that they actually just arrested him to make sure he didn't get COVID. It was actually for the good of him. This is the continuation of China and their zero COVID policy. Whilst a lot of the world, including ours, has decided that COVID doesn't exist anymore, China not only believes it exists, but believes it should be eradicated, obviously believing that COVID and the Uyghur Muslims have something in common. But they also got, alongside the anti-lockdown protests, you also have democracy and freedom of press protests, which ironically are not being mentioned in the state press in China. This is causing the police, of course, to beat and arrest people for their own good. Although it's nice to know that we have some things in common with China, because in this country you can arrest journalists if they're talking about protests, and of course we have media that ignore protests going on in this country. So I'm not suggesting we're as bad yet. Well, that's everything. I will speak to you all tomorrow. Enjoy.